Hello, my name is Oluwatimi Malone Danville, and I will be doing my history project on my dad.
My name is Okpayemi Dembo, Timiloron's dad.
First, I want to start off with some background and childhood questions. So, what was your childhood like?
He was pretty adventurous. The last child of an accountant father and a teacher mother, raised in a home where discipline is the key and education is the drive.
What was your family like growing up in Africa?
It was very interesting. My dad was the managing director of a multinational company called BWAC, and he travels quite a bit. Although I was born in Lagos, but we spent quite a lot of time in Europe, especially UK itself, traveling with my dad, and summers usually out of the country. Raised in a suburb with good neighbors.
What is one memory from your childhood that still makes you smile?
Oh, well, my dad, the fact that he worked for the multinational, loved hanging out in the boonies. So we had a country home that was smack in the middle of the, the jungle, I would say, because it had a lot of forest around it. And we usually go there just to hang out. Every once in a while you run into deer. And as a kid, you get so scared of things like that because they startle you and then you run home. Every time I think about it, and the way my dad would usually say, "Hey, go chase it back," makes me smile.
What kind of teen were you? Were you quiet, rebellious, focused?
I wasn't rebellious. I was a pretty active kid, a bit rascally in the things that I did. Always trying to push the limit. So some people might say, a bit wayward, but I wasn't. I left high school very early, at 15, and I started driving practically at the age of 13 plus. So, pretty interesting.
So that was going to be my next question. What was high school like?
My high school was pretty good. When I say good, meaning we have good memories of things that happened. I attended both a Dominican Catholic primary school, which is your middle school, and the high school was an Irish Catholic school called St. Finbar's College, very close to University of Lagos. It was pretty interesting because I was very, very young going through high school, and the thing that stood out in my mind was, the piloting of us, making sure that we ended up in engineering, at least for me, because we had technical drawing, engineering drawing, woodwork, metalwork from onset. So we really had good use of our hands. So it was good, And I was part of the debating society as well as the drama. So acting is pretty part of things that I'm good at.
What did you and your friends do for fun?
Oh, we're party kids, From high school, because I had a car very early in high school. I guess that's the reason why I made sure that you guys had a car. I was very mobile, so we could up and go anywhere we wanted, at least, but with the permission of my parents. So we're able to go to, activities in other high schools, mobile, and we can, haul each other around. It was fun, and we attended parties, stayed out a bit late, but not too late because, at that point I was just 14, 15. I left high school, 15 and a half. So pretty had a good head start. So we had fun. We're a bit risky things that we did, like racing and all kind of stuff. Not conscious of the danger of what could happen if we end up in a crash.
Okay, now I want to get into your adulthood. So, what did you do after high school? After you graduated at 15, a very young age.
Oh, I went to college. Rather than I went to it's up north. I grew up in the south, close to the Atlantic Ocean, but I ended up in the middle of the desert in Nigeria, which is Zaria. That's north. It's in what they call Kaduna State in Nigeria, Ahmadu Bello University. I ended up there pretty early, so that's why I graduated pretty early as well and was able to get my master's done while others were still just getting into college. So it was interesting, pretty a little bit, naive, still going through it. Although book smart, but I wasn't fully matured, you know. Uh, so my parents made sure that they kept me down until I finished my master's before I was even able to get a job. So I was still under a lot of their control going through college. So I ended up in college right out of high school.
So, what was your first real job as like an adult?
Oh, okay. So in Nigeria, there's something called youth service. Giving back to the society after college. You serve the government. You work in a local environment. You're either teaching or doing some other thing for local organizations. So I did 1 year of that. That was really my first job. Luckily for me, one of my aunties, who happens at that time to be the MD of a company called VYB, a sister company to my dad's company, hired me as an engineer, trainee engineer, because I was still in youth corps and I was messing around with a bit of machinery and what they call the rigging jeeps, the high construction equipment. I was working with them, doing a little bit of design in terms of fixing of the breakage in the steel materials, and doing, strength of materials study for them, give them a report, that will help them in the remediation or what they call the repair of the equipment. So that was really the first one. It was pretty interesting. Played a bit of truancy because, of course, I'm a relative of the MD, so nobody bothers me. So sometimes I'll be at work, supposed to stay from 8 to 5. I'll be in the office for 10 o'clock. Sometimes I'll leave as early as 3 o'clock, and then I go to lunch with the MD, my auntie, and she might want to go somewhere from there. She would drop me at home. So I was able to get away with some interesting things, but I learned from that as well.
What kinds of dreams did you have, or goals and aspirations did you have back then?
Back then, I wasn't sure. I was too young to have clarity of mind. When I finished my master's with specialty, I really wanted to set up a consulting firm. My goal was to have a consulting firm doing designs and stuff, making sure the environment is a lot safer for greenery and others to live with. I really wanted, to be someone that's pretty prominent in the society. When I say that, to serve in the government, and rise up in that cadre. At the same time, having my own consulting firm on the side.
So now I want to ask, what was it like when you first moved to America?
Oh, okay. My moving to America wasn't really planned. Relocating to Nigeria and to America wasn't planned. It wasn't something that was intentional. I had, bachelor's and master's in engineering, and my brother, my older brother, kept insisting that you can't have two technical degrees without a management in the middle of it. So he wanted me to do MBA. My parents concurred with him. I was actually supposed to go to University of Birmingham, and that's not here. That's the UK. For some reason, it didn't work out, and we decided, okay, you know what? I'll just come to the States. My parents wanted me, to go to a Catholic school. The best we could find at that time was either going to Loyola or going to Marquette, which is a Lutheran college in Wisconsin. That's how I ended up here to do my MBA. After my MBA, I got hired, as internship by GE, and it became a permanent position that GE offered me, a path to citizenship, and say, if you want to stay, we'll file for you. So I ended up staying in the United States. It wasn't something intentional to relocate to the US. It's comfortable, it's nice, but I still saw it as too far away from home being where my parents were at that time.
Okay, now I want to get into more of the civil rights questions. What do you remember about the civil rights movement and what was happening?
I said when I moved to the United States, civil rights had already gone quite far. Martin Luther King, of course, outside of history, had already died. Of course, I read up on it quite a lot of things. I got very familiar with things that Andrew Young, was doing then, because he normally would come to Nigeria, and quite a bit of them I got, familiar with. I wasn't involved in it because by the time I got here, it was already past. The struggle was still ongoing, which is still ongoing. You know, I appreciated what they did to try to ensure that, blacks and women have rights within the society. We're able to vote. We are recognized as, equal contributors to the, progress of the United States. So that much I know, and it's still an ongoing thing. Every once in a while you get the short end of the stick, subconsciously or unconsciously, and you have to do your best to make sure that you're equal to or better than.
Were there any moments where you personally witnessed discrimination or injustice?
Injustice, no. Discrimination, yes. There's some situations that are not glaring. There's some that's most obvious to you that decisions that are being made is because of the pigmentation. Like you want to buy a house and the rate that you're getting. Of course, I was very young, way back then, and it was as if, having this young guy that wants to do this, or you want to buy a car, and they're not attending to you, when you find out that you can, they think you're wasting their time. They see that you can afford it. The next thing they're thinking of is where did you get the money and all kind of stuff. So I think profiling was some of the things that I had witnessed. You get pulled over, and it's simply because you're driving a fancy car, or I've never had a situation where the police comes to my house because I'm living in a particular neighborhood. No, but I've seen situations where you get pulled over, and it's not because you're speeding or anything. It's simply because you're driving a fancy car. So it's neither here nor there. But the bottom line is, things could be better. Everybody, regardless of what your pigmentation is, application of the law should be the same. Dealing with one another should be the same. It should be on the content of your character and not just, what you look like. That's the way I see it.
How do you think the country has changed the most during your lifetime?
Well, I've seen things interesting. Things, when we came in, it was, things got a lot better and stuff. And now we're in a situation where it seems like everything's, is getting reversed. People are more conscious of, opportunities that comes with you having a particular pigmentation and things like that, not on your qualification or the content of your character. So I hope and pray that things will get, normal. Everybody will see each other as human beings, and then we can work with one another, based on the aptitude and the attitude.
What was the most hopeful moment in U.S. history that you lived through?
Kind of, mixed. Living through the era of Bill Clinton, coming through Obama, it's been very interesting. You get more opportunities. People are more conscious of, hey, treat this person based on their, qualifications and their character, to, where you start noticing that opportunities are given more to women to be able to sit in the front office as opposed to being relegated to somewhere else. The same thing goes for whites, same thing goes for blacks, and opportunities regardless of what your, sexual orientation is. So I've lived through that, and I think it's good that everybody should deal with one another based on what you can provide, what you can produce, and what you can help with, and not just because, you're a particular pigmentation.
What was the most difficult or troubling moment in U.S. history that you witnessed?
Well, for me, it was the desert, war. Not just from the one that happened in the Arabian environment, but also the one that happened in, the Mesopotamia area, which is the Iraq thing. I felt it was pretty troubling. It was scary because we never knew that Saddam Hussein did not have weapons of mass destruction, so it could have been majorly under attack if the guy had it. But even at that, I felt it was not fair. It was, to me, a bit troubling being at war and then bringing down a whole nation, unjustly. In my opinion, unjustly, just because we're not too sure what they have. So it was pretty troubling. And now again, we're going through this era, good or bad. I think, at my age, uncertainty is pretty tough to handle. You have all your investments, and all of a sudden things are getting wiped out, and you're getting this wait and see kind of ways, and then I have young children, so I really have to manage things and be much more risk averse.
So now I want to get into your more family, personal life, like your adulthood. What kind of work were you doing in your 30s and 40s?
Oh, in my 30s and 40s, I was already full grown man. I'd been working for quite a while because I got into the workforce pretty early. I was working for GE within the early part of my 30s, and then I moved to Microsoft, and then from Microsoft to Citigroup. I did quite a lot of green constructions with them, managing the design of data centers, buildings that houses technology infrastructure, getting involved in application placements and things like that. I'm not a programmer, and I'm not an application developer, but the back end of things, where the equipment that houses all this would be homed or hosted, are things that I got involved with, and I got the opportunity of traveling practically all over the world as a young executive with both with GE and with Microsoft, and then finally to Citigroup.
What lessons were the most important for you to teach your kids?
Plan your life. Decide for yourself at what point, at what age do you want to retire, and what you want to see yourself doing when you term it retirement. Retirement for me is you refocusing your life and deciding, okay, I'm not doing a regular 8 to 5 job. This is what I would rather do with my time right now. Taking percentage of the day, doing some level of intelligent work. The other aspect of it, volunteering to help the rest of the society, or giving back to the society, and having ample time to spend with your family. That is the biggest, lesson that I would like to teach my kids. Aside from that, hold their feet to the fire, hold yourself as a person of integrity. Your character matters. How the society see you as responsible or reliable, which are two different things, matters most. It matters a lot to me. You can sleep at peace, and you can be of assistance to other people and leave a legacy behind.
Were there any big turning points in your life during those decades?
Yes. Point in my life, I retired from Citigroup and decided to finally set up my own consulting firm. And at that time, my father, who was a bit older, was practically in hospice. It was pretty tough on me. I had an ailing father. I also had a sick brother who was the firstborn of my family. I'm a family person. I love being around my family, enjoying time with them, and I miss being, my father being around. But it was pretty tough. I had to be there for him to set up not just my consulting firm and getting settled here at the time that you were born, and also having to set up in Nigeria, because I was going to spend some time in Nigeria and with him to ensure that he's comfortable. He was here in the States, and he decided he wanted to move to Nigeria because he wanted to be buried there. So we moved him back to Nigeria, settled him down, kept an eye on him until he finally passed away. But at that time, my brother was gravely sick as well. So pretty troubling period for me. That 4 years, my father had just passed away. My brother was going through, some tough health situation that it was, practically we couldn't see the end of it other than, he's passing away. And he did eventually pass away. So it's a pretty tough period for me. Yeah.
Okay, so for my last couple questions, What was your first impression of America?
Oh, land of opportunity, of course. When we moved in, the playing field was fairly out of college, from career center, got hired by GE. My role and responsibility was clear. I was greatly appreciated. Got to hang out or get a lot of FaceTime with Welsh at that time, who was the chairman, and it was pretty nice. Getting appreciated for who you are, and then doing your job, and it was having aside from the salary, which was excellent, fantastic for my age. I really enjoyed my job. It was something I would have done even for less salary.
Okay, so for my last question, how do you think coming to America changed your life?
Again, it's a land of opportunity. Things in Africa went reversed from when I moved out of Nigeria. Things are getting better now, but I felt being here, I had better exposure to the first world, living, and my experience grew exponentially. My network became a lot larger. I have a better reach. If I need resources at this time or at any time, I could get to it. I had access, outside from my own fund, I had access to a lot of resources, both intellectual resources, personal resources, and financial. So that's what, I see that, the advantage of me living here. Outside of that, it's just another world.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.